Now that we're rolling into March, it is Women's History Month. So welcome to the Galorants Q&A. We are going to be kicking things off with a little bit of a intro on who we have on here today. I'm Ash, also known as Spicy Pyro, and I was a pretty early member of Galorants, went through the caster training program, and now I am doing broadcast work for Valorant. And hello to everybody else here if you guys want to introduce yourselves real quick.
Okay, well, my name is Nikki. I am the Galorants owner and co-creator. I also work for Gen G as a talent dev ambassador, or a little bit more formally known as a team manager for our women's Valorant team. I kind of started Galorants, so unfortunately I haven't had a chance to delve into any of our programs. However, I have had the pleasure of watching everybody here grow into the, person that they are today within esports, and it's been incredible to watch you guys do all these amazing opportunities and whatnot. I'm really thankful for it.
I guess I'll go next. I'm Cass, also known as Cass. I played Valorant competitively for about the first year and a half of the, that it's been around, and I made mod for Galorants.
I'm right next to Cass on my screen, so I'll go next. I'm Annie. I'm a community moderator for Galorants. I am also an in-game observer for Valorant and a broadcast producer, and outside of my esports life, I am also a marketing and event manager.
My name is Kit, otherwise known as Resley. I am community moderator for Galorants. I also help run our social media pages. I do some work as a tournament organizer within Galorants as well. I also do a little bit of work on the production end of tournaments as well,
Just a little
within broadcast. Just a little bit.
There's a little bit more than a little bit.
We try and we out here.
I'm proud.
Making our way up.
It's nice to have you guys all here and chilling in a call. It's really nice to see your beautiful faces. Happy Women's Month to everybody. Moving forward, Galorants, what do we do here at Galorants? Galorants' mission statement is basically we provide opportunities to women and non-binary gamers that are interested in pursuing something within this field, whether it be in competitive or back-end administrative work or TOing or caster. We try our best to delve in as much as we can to provide the opportunities that we can here. And I think we've done a pretty good job. I think we've provided, a lot considering how small we were to begin with. Galorant started off as a subreddit post within the Valorant subreddit. Neophobia, the original creator, she wanted to create a Discord server for, at the time, women, and we were all having a tough time dealing with toxicity, and I saw that post within like 16 minutes of her posting that, and I reached out to her because I had created Discord servers for previous streamers before, and I thought, why not take this opportunity to provide something good this time around, right? And so that's what happened. Galorants started off as this really small community server and grew into a server to provide opportunities and a safe space, if you will. And it's been great to watch it grow into what we are today, where we just hit 17,000 members, I believe. And that's just an incredible feat that I never, ever thought we would have hit. Really, who would have thought? When we first started, we weren't even doing tournaments, and then we were like, let's do in-houses, let's see how that goes. And from in-houses started little tournaments with no prize pool, and then from there we just grew. Our very first tournament was for the women showdown with NSG, and then through there we did a charity tournament, and then we were approached by Riot and asked to handle their Game Changers Academy tournaments, which was terrifying but still amazing at the same time. So I thought that was always incredible.
I joined during, the first week that the server was around. I think I was in like the first, 500 members or so. And at the time it was just, a server that I had joined just, for another place to find friends to play with and everything. And then here we are, almost 2 years later now. And it's what you just said. It's this amazing, wonderful place that we do our best to create a safe space for women and now non-binary members, and we have all these opportunities that are available And it's, I mean, there's no other way to put it. It's incredible.
I think Cass has grown with me through all the growing pains and everything. It's been an interesting venture, but definitely worth it. Definitely worth it.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think I was within the first 500, but I was definitely within the first like 1,000 members. And yeah, and I remember like playing in like the very first Galorants tournament ever. Like ever. And that's where I met Penguin and Wolf, who are also now like mods for Galorants, and I'm a mini mod. So I think it's really interesting to see like how far Galorants has come, like compared to that initial baby tournament that was put on, and like the scale that the community has grown, especially as far as like you said, now doing like Game Changers Academy, working with Riot. I feel like it's a lot that has happened just within the span of essentially a year and a half or so, and I think that's insane. And just that the Valorant community in general has had a really fast-paced growth ever since its release.
I remember when I first became a mini mod, I want to say, I think it was actually like just 1 year ago, February 2021. I remember we were getting ready to put out our like 5,000 member giveaway, but before we got it out, we reached 6,000 members. So we just went on all the adverts and crossed out the 5 and put a 6, but like that's how quick it was growing. So yeah, it's just really exciting to see.
I remember that. I think I still have all the graphics for that, actually.
I came in from that, actually. I came in somewhere between the 5,000 and 6,000 members. So we have... Oh, I'm the most baby in here. Oh, God.
Speaking of growth, though, I mean, we know that Galorants, I mean, it feels kind of weird trying to reach into this topic in this kind of way because we all are mods, slash Nichi owns Galorants, but...
I was a mod, too.
You're not just a mod. But speaking of growth, I just want to also, I guess, branch into the programs that we offer, because those have also grown alongside the community. And I think that we've all had different hands in the growth of these particular programs as well. I know that Cass was part of the teacher program for a little bit when it initially came out. Then we have, I was part of the caster program, which is currently not as set as it used to be due to a lack of volunteer availability to get things running, but the community is still working on that. And then as well as like Kit has learned a lot about tournament organization and administration through Galorants, and then Annie being able to learn observing and production as well. So I kind of just wanted to, you know, we can all just touch on these programs a little bit and talk about, I guess, what everything provides in a sense, and like the hands that we've had. And if you wanted to start things off, Cass, about the teacher program, I think that's like the most recently revamped program as well within Galorants.
Yeah, sure. It started out, yeah, I think after we had a couple thousand members in the server, the very first iteration of the teacher program, and it was essentially, you know, for players that wanted to learn and improve and get better at the game. Members that were higher ranked could sign up to be a teacher, and I think the requirement was you had to be like plat or higher, platinum rank or higher. And we didn't have like a ton of teachers, but we had a decent amount of people, like, you know, students. And it's kind of wild to think now that, like, looking back, there are some players that I coached, you know, a year and a half ago or so, and like they were iron rank, they're bronze, like they're like, you know, the lower ranks, but now they're immortal, they're competing in like the highest tier tournaments. And it's kind of just wild to see the difference. Like, you know, like obviously there's more to it than that, but that was a part of their journey, that was a part of how they grew. And it's just amazing to think, you know, what that little bit, like just a couple hours that I'd spent with, like, you know, some of these people, like I was a part of that journey now. Like it's really cool to see that just the progress that so many people have made in the server because of the teacher program. And it's like you said, it's kind of gone through a couple different iterations. and we have the revamped version about it is about to officially launch, I think, right?
Actually, it just launched.
Yeah, I think it just launched.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun to think, who's going to be signing up for the program now that, in a year from now, they're going to be competing too.
And I think like talking about the teaching program a little bit more, it's really interesting to see how valuable these programs are to the community because, as far as women and non-binary gamers go, I mean, things have been shifting, obviously, especially recently. It's a lot more welcoming to women and non-binary gamers in general. But before this, and like this is across all titles. Like if you're looking to get better at a game as a woman or a non-binary player, you don't really have as many resources to look towards. I mean, you have like YouTube videos and tutorials can only get you so far. But as far as the community goes, there's a lot of peer-to-peer learning, I think, throughout any title. And it can be a lot harder normally for women and non-binary players to either like find somebody to learn from or that's willing to coach them, because a lot of the times, like before the past like several years, you would just be turned away, and you still are now sometimes even like turned away. Like we know that some female teams get denied scrims that are originally scheduled, and then like they go to the scrim and then they find out that this team that they're versing, like this male team is versing a female team, and the male team will be like, oh, we're canceling now, like we don't want to scrim you guys, this isn't worth our time. So I think that programs like the learning program just provide so much as far as having a safe space where we feel comfortable as women and non-binary players to like reach out, and we have people that we could talk to and learn from, as opposed to the fact that like normally it's so inaccessible, or you just usually don't feel safe doing it. But yeah, I don't know, that was just my little piece.
Yeah, I think it's really important and that you brought up safe spaces, Ash, because places like Galorants is one of the largest, but it's not the only safe space for female and non-binary players. And now I would say that it piloted an initiative to create more safe spaces once people saw how successful Galorants was. The teaching program is a great example of that, but another thing that players use our servers for is to find scrims with other female teams so they don't have to be turned down. There are also the other opportunities for casters, aspiring casters to learn, for observers to learn, for women and non-binary individuals to just connect with each other and find casual games to play. Like, these spaces are so important to fostering a healthy and safe environment for the gaming community and esports in general. And in the 2 years since Galorants has existed, there have also been similar communities popping up, not just for Valorant, but for other video game titles and for other aspects of gaming and esports too. I know of a pretty tight-knit production community that's focused in female and non-binary talent.
Going off on that, like I said, I work for Gen G, I work with our female team, and we get denied scrims just because people assume like, oh, we're our men's team, and all of a sudden they hear that it's our female team and they're like, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to, it's not going to be as good of a scrim, and the competitiveness is not going to be it's going to be up there. People just don't want to play these teams just because they think that we're inferior by some, it's ridiculous to see how things like this still happen in this day and age. And it just shows how important that these programs and these safe spaces, not just Galorants, but like Annie said, multitude of areas are important to have because it fosters growth. Learning programs for lower ranked individuals, right? It's so important because that's how you continue to grow your scenes. You keep your same talent in there, the same talent pool, and eventually things are going to kind of spread thin. You need to get that new talent in, and they need to be comfortable asking for that help. And there's a lot of areas that they just aren't. So that's why it's so important to keep, all of these little areas, all of these little safe spaces around, because it fosters the growth that each scene needs, whether it's competitive or on the back end of things.
I think that's something that like a lot of people don't really understand if I'm just going to say in general, I think that's something a lot of people don't understand is the importance of it. Especially in the competitive scene, you see a lot of people arguing like, oh, well, if these non-men players are as good as, you know, the normal player, the quote unquote normal players, like the pros that we see out there in the male dominant scene, shouldn't they just be able to compete? Like if they're that good, like they should just be at that level, blah, 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 blah. But it's like this lack of understanding that despite even being that good, even on the side of being that good, it can be hard for non-men players to get that good because of the the denial of opportunities, and two, you'll have teams who don't want like a woman or an NB player on their team. Like I've seen so many tweets about girls and NB players who are reaching out for team opportunities to do tryouts and whatnot, and like they'll be going through DMs with people, and the people will be responding like really looking forward to this tryout, like blah blah blah, like excited to actually see what this player can do, and then they find out that they're not a man, and then it's just like, oh, we don't want to try you out anymore. And it's just kind of like a little summary as to just like remind everyone that, you know, the skills are there, but the importance of these communities is, for one, safety, and two, to uplift women and NB players because of the fact that it's just not normally as accessible. And sometimes like there are definitely people with like raw talent, but at the end of the day, it's also a lot of practice that goes into it for these players. And if you're denied the ability to practice at a high level, you're not going to be able to get better. Yeah, I don't really know where I'm going with this point right now.
I agree.
But yeah,
you're saying. No, I think, you know, not that I'm a high elo player trying to make it, but from what I've seen, it looks like that it's a very stressful path to try to take if you're trying to make it as a professional esports player. Like whether you're a woman, man, non-binary, whatever you identify as. Male players have it tough too, but then if they were constantly like those players that are, or teams, managers, whatever, that are constantly denying women these opportunities, and then asking why women aren't competing with men all the time, I don't think they realize like how long can you stay in the scene when you're trying your hardest. You might even have the same amount or more talent than some of your male colleagues, but you're just told no all the time because of who you are. And then how does that affect your gameplay? How does that, like, because your mental and physical well-being, of course, is all going to play into how good you are at the game as well. It's just so many extra barriers that it just becomes almost a little unfair. Like, I mean, more than a little unfair, but we're judging them all at the same standard. We have women and non-binary players having to jump through so many extra hoops. And I think having a space where they come to and all of that, like gender is just negated. It's just, let's just focus on the game. That was, at least for me coming to Galorants, something I found so cool when I joined my first lobby and played with people for the first time. I was like, it literally doesn't matter who I am. I can just have fun. And it was such like a breath of fresh air. So yeah, one of the reasons I fell in love with Galorants too, just kind of tying back to the teaching program, was because of that as well. And I think just providing these spaces that people can come into, like you said, feel safe, not have to worry about who they are or where they come from, and just know that there's people who actually want to help them and are committed to seeing them succeed. It's such a powerful thing, and we can already see the changes that it's making in the scene.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think like all of these points also just extend into the industry in general, like whatever role it is, not just necessarily pro players, but any non-man person going into a male-dominated industry. It's tough. It's really tough because doors can just be closed on you because, you know, people will automatically be like, oh, like gaming's just for dudes. and therefore you don't know anything like about it. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, you're not good at this stuff. Like, there's no way. It's all like the stigma and the stereotypes that come along with it, and then that also bleeds into like every other facet. Like, I mean, I'm gonna throw to Annie, for example, working in production and in observer work and whatnot. Because I know, like, I can speak from my personal experiences as a caster, getting a lot of flack, especially because as somebody who's like actually on the screen or talking to the audience who's listening to a tournament, it'll be like, oh, is this a women's only event? The caster is a girl, so it's got to be a women's only event, right? Like, that's what I'll hear in Twitch chat. And I was just wondering, like, Annie, did you want to like talk about your experience as an observer and in production, and how you feel like your journey has gone as far as gender being a part of it as well? And
Sophia came to say hello.
Cats
Like working backstage in observing and in production, I have a slightly different experience from Ash. It's like when I am working on let's call them like co-ed tournaments, like non-female, non-binary only tournaments, I've never felt like when I've had a talent announcement that people think like, oh, there's a female producer and a female observer, then it must be a female only event. However, my struggle in working in broadcasting is trying to find opportunities. Like, you know, we talked a little bit, there's the concept of there's doors closed. Sometimes it's hard to figure out where the door even is, girl. Like,
True.
like when I started out in observing and producing, well, a bit of background of how I got into it. I actually became an observer only for the purpose of helping out Galorants. Actually, I was already a mod at the time, and we were canceling some of our NA in-house streams because we just didn't have the woman power to do it. There was no one that was available to observe and knew how to observe. At times we had a lack of producers. So I was like, well, I really care about these streams, and NA in-house are really fun for me. So I want other people to have that experience too. And I ended up really enjoying it. And one of the observer mentors in Galorants, her name is Today's Dreams. She has been a wonderful mentor to me and introduced me to a lot of different female and non-binary individuals in the scene that have given me opportunities to showcase my work in observing and get experience and broadcast hours and everything. And yeah, it is really thanks to the women who came before me that I am where I am today.
That's so sweet.
That was so sweet.
I didn't know that you started observing because of our in-houses. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Look where you are now, though.
I know.
True.
It stemmed into so much other work, and I'm so grateful for it.
What's beautiful about that too is Annie is so committed to sharing that experience with so many people. Like, the only reason I've gotten into production a little bit is because of a similar thing. I wanted to help out with the Galorants event where they needed someone, and Annie sat down and taught me everything I need to know, and she's constantly helping others and is so committed to mentoring people. And I think that's a common theme within Galorants. A lot of the people that have been lifted up just love to pass on that wealth, and I think that's what's made the community so successful. So I just wanted to highlight that for a second. We need more of that. I'm very appreciative of people like you.
Oh, stop.
Going off, I think it's really incredible to see how, you know, you learned something just for the sake of learning it, and it's provided you with so many different opportunities that you never thought you would have experienced. And it's incredible to see that growth and to see how many more opportunities that you are getting and that you are choosing to delve in. And that's one thing that people forget to realize, that putting yourself out there, even though you're not familiar with it, or even though you're trying to learn it, is so huge in getting into this industry. Esports is all about putting yourself out there, taking yourself out of your comfort zone to choose where you go necessarily. And while the opportunities are small, they are slowly opening up more the more people we get into here. Competitive opportunities, production opportunities, caster opportunities. The more you do and the more people you converse with and interact with, the more that you're slowly going to get. And even though the growth has been, in retrospect, small, it's been large for those of us who choose to try and delve into the more that we do. And just being able to hear that Annie's gotten more opportunities in production spaces and multiple events, and Kit's doing that also, and Ash over here is also doing it, and Cass, I'm sorry that you don't play competitive anymore. But it's been incredible just to see you guys all grow in your respective fields, even if you aren't actively in that field anymore. It's still taught you valuable lessons along the way that you choose to use within your daily lives and other opportunities you choose to go into. And I'm really proud to have played a very minor part in that, a very little itty bitty part.
I feel like it's a good place to jump off to as well, though, or at least highlight a little bit more for anyone who's watching who might be thinking, how can I get into this field? I think just sitting down with yourself and asking, what can I do? Or what am I willing to do as well? And I don't mean that by like way overextending yourself and exhausting yourself, but find meaningful opportunities to connect with people and do things that you care about. When I started out, I remember joining the social media team and I had no idea what I was doing. But man, I love memes. So that kind of carried me through. And now I've really enjoyed not the memes. I think that's literally how it started. I think I made a meme and they're like, you should join social media team. And now I've really actually started to look into that as more of a career path for myself. I really enjoy copywriting. I enjoy thinking about branding and all that stuff. I remember I was just thinking about this the other day. I sent Nikki the most like baby scared message when I wanted to get involved with tournament stuff. I was like, hi, I kind of want to I want to try it, but I don't know anything. And could I just be a fly on the wall for the tournaments? I won't say anything. I just want to see what they do. And she's like, it's fine. You'll pick it up. Just join the tournament team. And
just kicked you in there. Sorry.
Just
threw you into the deep end and told you to swim.
And it was great though. It's just what I needed. And I think as long as you're willing to do that, there's so many opportunities. There's so many smaller level events that need help. I've learned so much just by, I think, just being there and just saying yes. I think that's just it. Be in a room where people need something and just say yes. And especially if you do it, as long as it's appropriate, for sure. And that is a good thing to highlight.
Advantage of.
Yeah, no, stand up for yourself for sure. Make sure you're not way overextended. But I think especially if you can find a community you care about, whether it be Galorants or something else, find people you trust and be willing to do some research to learn a skill, to reach out to people to get some help and provide something of value. And then I think more opportunities will just start to come to you.
Yeah, I don't think any of us got to where we are today by being comfortable, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I first was helping Neo create this server, I was working in a law office as a court transcriber and as a 911 dispatcher at the same time. The one game that I consistently played was League of Legends, and I still do to this day. I don't want to talk about it, but we all delved into areas that we didn't, we were exploring. We didn't know if we'd be comfortable with it. And here we are today, right? I'm working at Genji, an amazing, amazing org that I would have never have thought, in a million years I would be where I am. I get to work with incredible people in Galorants, and the opportunities that I get from Galorants is because I decided to say, let's try it. Let's see where I can take this. Let's see where we can go. And unfortunately, being a woman in esports and in this space always comes with its hardships and difficulties. It has not been easy to be where we are today, but don't become complacent because you think you can't make it. You can make it. Hell, I made it. And I just want to be able to share that with everybody. You can make it. You just have to put in that time, that effort and energy. And it's a lot of hard work, but it's rewarding in the end when you get there. So please don't become complacent. Do not get taken advantage of, but don't be afraid to say yes to things you don't think you're well versed in or any of that. None of us got to where we are today by being complacent.
In the brief period that this scene has been around, I was curious about, for the other areas of esports, like the number of opportunities available from the beginning of the Valorant scene to where we are now. Because from like a competitive sense, in the early days, there weren't that many opportunities. There weren't that many tournaments that you could play in. There weren't that many things that was like accessible. There was there was a CLG Redfield Pickup Cup. There was the early Galorants tournaments for fun. And I think like the first major tournament back in those days was a new tournament. They had $1,000 prize pool, and that was a big deal. But aside from those few things, there weren't really that many opportunities that were accessible to women outside of just diving into the deep end of these other servers where you'd face a lot of toxicity and adversity, and it wasn't accessible. But now looking at where we are today, like the Anu tournament, where that was a big deal back then, at $1,000 prize pool, we have one of those every month. We have $50,000 prize pool tournaments, couple times a year now. It's like the number of opportunities that are available over this brief period of time. There's so much more.
And also like the Game Changers LAN coming up as well is like such a huge stepping stone and milestone, I think, for the community as well. We don't have like too much information on it, but like it's kind of crazy to see that we are now getting into the international scene now as like women and non-binary players. And that's something where if you had asked any of us like a year or two ago, that would be like a fever dream to even think about it, So I think that is, I don't know, it's crazy. It's pretty incredible how far we've come. And obviously, just to like touch back on, obviously Galorants is not what necessarily made everything possible. It was definitely, I think, a community that I believe Nietzsche has said multiple times before. I don't necessarily know if in this video, but through discussions with each other, Galorants has been kind of in the right place at the right time. And that's all due in part to also like the work that's been put in over years and years of non-men being in the industry, just trying to put their voices out there as much as possible. And it was in like, especially like not even like 5 years ago, the community was so different. But it's interesting to see that, I think in part due to the pandemic, a lot of people being home and gaming a lot more. We also saw, obviously, women and non-binary players have been gaming for forever now. But it was a lot harder before, Discord was as big and whatnot to kind of get in touch with each other. There are communities here and there that people would be able to join, but Galorants coming in kind of during like the prime time of COVID, like kicking off, I think was played a big part in how quickly this community grew, because people being at home were now looking more for online interactions because they couldn't get as many in real life interactions. And then getting into gaming kind of became like it almost kind of became a trend, where it was getting pretty big on like TikTok and stuff like that. And that got a lot of attention from, I think, other like I know a lot of people who have gotten into gaming because of Valorant. Like people who didn't play games before Valorant because they saw this community growing, and then also saw like creators who were women and NBs on TikTok, on Twitter, on Twitch, getting into this game because they were home, like they were looking for like entertainment. And I think that just brought a lot of player base to the game. So I don't know. I feel like everything kind of just happened during the perfect time, is I guess what I'm trying to say.
No, it totally did. Galorants started pretty much at the very beginning of COVID. COVID happened in like March. Galorants was created in June, and by the time it was created, everyone had like a little taste of being home and being online and wanting that interaction, but wasn't, they weren't able to get it. So it was definitely like a right place, right time type of scenario. But well, we could argue that people started playing games because of Valorant too, because their introduction to it was Valorant. You'd see there's a lot of individuals within the server itself that don't actually play Valorant, don't want to touch the game, do not like FPS games, but they want to be in there because it's a community that plays other games aside from Valorant too. And it's not just a primarily Valorant server. Do we kind of specify more towards it? Absolutely. But it's a community that people wanted, that they needed during the time, because you couldn't interact really outside of it. You'd have your family, of course, but some people don't. And they wanted that interaction, but were unable to get it in the areas that they would typically try and delve, because toxicity is a huge factor and the reason why there's so many members within the server. And definitely a right place, right time scenario. And it blew up just because, I wouldn't say just because of that, but all the hard work and the timing and all of that, for sure.
We've talked a lot about how we've personally grown and how we've seen the esports scene grow, how we've seen our own communities grow. And I think part of Women's History Month is not just looking at the past, but looking towards the future too. So I'm wondering if you guys, do you have any, let's get visionary for a second. Do you have any dreams or any hopes that you have for the women and NB scene moving forward?
I mean, as somebody who has had the opportunity to watch so many people grow already, just the continuation of that is huge, and it makes me proud to be able to what I've done so far and what I continue to do in both spaces, in Galorants and Gen G. I want to just watch more opportunities and more growth within everybody that chooses to delve, of course. I want to see more happen within the scene. The movement and how much has been done is fantastic. It's been phenomenal, but I want more, right? I want more opportunities. I want more voices heard. I want more competitive players. My goal at the end of the day is to provide enough opportunities to where we don't need two competitive scenes. We don't need just a strictly female broadcast and a male broadcast, right? I want everything to combine to the point where what we have done doesn't need to be anymore, if that makes sense. I want it to get to the point where Galorants and all these female and non-binary communities aren't so much of a necessity anymore. They're a luxury that we can, decide to delve into and hang out in, but I don't want them to be as necessary as they are now.
I think that's a really good way to put it. Calling it a luxury instead of a necessity, I think, is just a key highlight that I wanted to. I just used the word that I was going to use, but that I wanted to highlight.
Highlights that she wanted to highlight.
Charming, I know. But,
absolutely.
Yeah, because I think at the end of the day, that's something that a lot of people also don't understand, is that we're not here to keep things separate. That's not the point. So I think that that's just a perfect way to describe that going forward. And I think I would say the same thing as far as production and broadcasts go. Obviously, I would love to see more diversity not just as far as gender, but in general, any type of diversity on broadcast teams specifically. But I don't want it to also be like, for the longest time in esports, as far as broadcasts go, there got to the point where every big tournament had its like token woman on it, and it was usually a host as well. Female casters did not get as much recognition, or if they were working top tiers like level broadcasts, which there are many top tier female NB hosts and and casters, but there was definitely a phase that esports went through where it was like you had your token female host for that tournament. Any caster who is female would like get a lot of slack in Twitch chat. I mean, all casters get slack in Twitch chat for sure, but I think we're slowly getting to the point where people are more, the audience is recognizing that, okay, you know, their gender doesn't matter as much. As long as they know what they're talking about, that's what matters. And we're not quite there yet, but we are moving in that direction. So that's definitely something that I want to see growing going forward. And I want a broadcast team to look diverse and be as diverse as possible, but I want that to be because everyone there has earned it, that the audience can recognize that everyone there has earned it. And this is not me saying that any like people who, you know, are on it now have not earned it, but I don't want it to be diverse just for the sake of being diverse, you know, as like a PR kind of thing. I want it to be because the audience and the organization feels that, you know, everybody on this team has done the work, they've put in the work, and they're capable. Because at the end of the day, I think that's what's really important, is just to be able to recognize the skill and the effort that people put going forward, especially women on productions, because of the fact that, you know, normally you get a lot of slack, claiming that, you know, we don't know as much about what we're talking about, even though you have like incredible talent out there doing amazing work who are experts, and they talk about, you know, the game, and that's their job because they're experts on it. But I think for a long time there was this lack of recognition, in the sense that it was just like, oh, the token girl or woman on the team, rather than actually recognizing them as an expert in her field.
Yeah, and kind of going off of that, I think not only like the treatment of women in broadcast or just esports in general in like Twitch chat, like from the public coming in, but I think the stories I've heard from women I've met that have been in the esports field for years, trying to make it when there weren't just many resources to help them along. Some of the stories I've heard of how women, especially in broadcasts, were treated are just pretty horrendous, to put it bluntly. And my background is partially as a musician, and also as an educator, but I know just as a musician, especially being a similar entertainment field, you're always just trying to get the next opportunity, and it can make you really afraid to speak up when you're being mistreated or you're being taken advantage of, in a professional sense, because your reputation is everything. You want to be known as easy to work with. And I think that's like, there's something, especially with women, I think a lot of us are raised like we're not supposed to, you know, make a scene. And
Make the scene, do it.
Yeah, no, do it, really.
Do it.
And
No, literally do it.
I think that's one thing I hope for Galorants in the scene going forward. What I'd love to see is that everyone who kind of comes through the community and is trying to learn something, I know I'm definitely less likely to speak up. I have a hard time speaking up about some of those things myself. And especially if I'm not like super confident in the work that I'm doing, if I feel like I'm still learning, I'm like, oh, like if I don't know what I'm doing and I'm like, you know, God forbid, asking to be treated with respect, then they'll never want to work with me again, which is silly. And I just hope that we can give them the tools that they feel confident enough that like, I am supposed to be here. I am valuable to the community, valuable to this profession. And I deserve a certain level of respect, and I demand that level of respect, in a professional way. But that's something I hope going forward, as much as I'd hope that other parties would just give us that respect too. I think preparing ourselves to ask for it and expect it and make it an expectation, and don't let these like things slide anymore. That would be something I hope for the community as well.
Yeah, don't let people bully you into thinking that you're smaller than you actually are. You deserve respect. You deserve to be able to ask questions and feel safe in the environment that you want to be in. And for people to make you feel smaller and less deserving is kind of ridiculous. Honestly, nobody should make you feel smaller than they shouldn't make you feel small regardless.
Mm-hmm.
You deserve to be and do the things that you want to do. And for somebody to put you in the position that you feel like it, make a fuss. Honestly, do not. I know it's hard, especially, all of us were told, don't make a fuss, don't act temperamental, don't demand things out of the realm of possibility. This isn't out of the realm of possibility. Stand up for yourself. Make sure that you are making your place. And, if they see it as a fuss, they're the ones treating you bad, not the other way around. You are learning, you are experimenting, you are doing your best. And if they can't give you that common decency, then honestly, like, they don't deserve to be in the positions that they're in. And the amount of people that I have to tell that to, demand your respect, demand that be shown respect, and don't let people make you feel smaller than you are. Don't. It's just, you're allowed and you deserve to be in the areas that you want to pursue. And I'll smush anybody that says otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
We all will. We'll all pull.
Oh yeah.
Just
we'll all pull up.
Rolling up.
Just rolling up in our pink Galorants.
The Galmobile.
Oh my god.
If you're sitting there and you're going through an experience and you're like, this doesn't feel right, and you're not sure, I think that I'm not to speak for all of us, but I think we can all agree, feel free to reach out to Galorants either through our mod mail system, or probably any of us on the moderation team, I think, would be happy to talk about it with you and provide some insight. I know for me, sometimes I have to run it past someone like, this, if something feels off about this, and I'm like, yeah, that's because it is off. And like, I just need someone to kind of like bring me back to reality. Yeah. And I think it's really important, if there's ever something that doesn't feel right, again, Galorants is a resource for everything you need. And I think we all want to see everyone succeed in a way that's healthy and everyone's happy and cared for. So yeah, I would just encourage you to reach out if you ever do need advice in that manner. We'd be happy to help you with that.
Equally, 9 out of 10 times, if your gut is saying it's wrong, it's generally wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
Preach.
Please trust yourself too. Like, don't hesitate to reach out to us in regards to certain matters where you're like, is this right? But majority of the time, if you feel like it's genuinely wrong, majority of the time it is wrong.
Yeah.
One of the questions that we want to kind of draw back to at the end of the day right now, this panel is starting in Women's Month specifically. And I know that the Team Liquid team was wondering what Women's Month means to all of us. Personally, it's hard. I'm going to preface this with, I know that this is a hard question to answer. It is such a broad, there's so many ways you can tackle it. But ultimately, if we all wanted to just take a quick turn to say, I don't know, how we feel about Women's Month, why we feel it's important. Yeah. If one of us wanted to start things off.
I'm happy to go first. What does Women's History Month mean to me? I think Women's History Month is about... It's three big things for me. I would say one is acknowledging the women that came before me. 2 is learning about the women who are paving the road now. And then 3 is looking forward to the future and see what aspirations we have and where we still have to grow.
For me, Women's Month is a time to highlight, I think, women for their achievements as far as, because I feel like often women's achievements get kind of put on the back burner, or they don't get highlighted as much as men, especially like specifically in male dominated industries like esports. They don't get, especially if working within a team, you'll usually see like the congratulations going towards all of the dudes on the team, and the woman who sometimes is like the person who did the most work on the project too is sitting there like, okay, cool. So I think that it's a really, I mean, women should be celebrated all the time. You know, we do have like a dedicated month because of the fact that we have been living under a patriarchy, and a lot of these industries are male dominated. So I think that, you know, having the chance to kind of put the spotlight on women a little bit more to show that how much we really do bring to the table, because that does get left in the shadows sometimes, is why Women's History Month is important to me. Because I think like I usually learn more about women during Women's History Month because of these stories, like whether historical, whether current, or looking into the future. They get highlighted and brought to attention so much more. And you learn so much about, I think, especially within team settings, women just don't get as much credit as their male counterparts do. So that's why it's important to me. And I think that I just learn a lot during Women's History Month, and that's what I value, because I get to learn about the amazing things that, I mean, I'm always learning amazing things about what women and NBs are doing around me, but to get the opportunity to see it at the forefront of the news or at the forefront of whatever platform I'm looking at, it's just a really nice highlight. And then eventually, hopefully we won't have to rely on Women's History Month as much to get that recognition. And that's what I would like to see going forward, but that's why I find it valuable.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's honoring all the work that had been done by women in the past to bring me to where I am today. You know, hard work and effort, not just by myself, but by those before me, got me to the position that I'm allowed to be in and the luxuries that I'm allowed to delve into. And this month is really just honoring what they're doing now and passing on what I've learned from them to everybody else that I interact with. And it's a huge month to be able to do that. And while I love to do that every other month too, this is the big month where I can acknowledge and share that and all those passions that they had and that I also have with everybody else. So
yeah, I think for me, it's more so kind of like what everybody else has said is like right up there. But I think for me, what comes to mind the most is it's kind of like almost like a checkpoint. It's like a prompt for reflection to kind of look back from a year ago and just kind of see how things have been progressed, like how things have grown over the last year.
First off, just agreeing with what everyone else has said. I think during Women's History Month, one thing I enjoy is like, I've noticed a lot, for example, on Twitter, like lots of Twitter spaces being hosted by accounts I follow, like orgs, and giving more women more platforms to speak on these things. And I've found a lot of other women to follow because of that. Oh my God, sorry, my cat is really trying to join this panel right now. So yeah, that's one thing just I enjoy during this month, having more opportunities for myself to like Nikki said and some other people touched on, who came before us, who's been doing this longer, who's doing other things in the fields that are worth taking note of. I really love that gets highlighted so much during this month. And hopefully that gives them more of a platform throughout the rest of the year as well.
To me, I feel like the biggest issue is perception and culture. There's a lot of history to just the way people view and perceive these things, all these like issues that we've been talking about, women in esports, women in general. And it takes time to override those perceptions that's kind of just ingrained into a lot of culture, and it'll take time. I think that is kind of at this point, that's the biggest barrier that we face. Like, we are seeing more opportunities growing. We're seeing more like women reaching higher and higher heights. It's just at this point we need to do what we can to lower the bar of adversity, so when someone goes to play a game, there isn't that toxicity there that there is currently, or that there has been in the past.
Yeah, time is definitely a hurdle. We'll say, the stigma that's been around has been around for 10 plus years. Honestly, it's just been around for a while, and it's going to take more than the 2+ years that have already been invested to change the stigma that's surrounding women and non-binary gamers. And you're seeing that change slowly happening. You're seeing more orgs get female teams, and more orgs hiring female production and talent in general, and it's great, and it's amazing to see that movement. But it's going to take time for acceptance to be to play a huge part in the way things are ran. The community needs to learn how to accept the participants need to be able to accept the changes that are happening, and stop being stuck in that stigma that's around already. On top of that is just opportunity to learn, opportunity to watch, opportunity to feel comfortable in interacting in is another huge hurdle. You got to feel safe in the area that you decide to pursue, and if you don't, then it's going to completely turn you off of it. If you don't feel comfortable, why are you going to stay around? You got to feel comfortable in the areas that you want to be in, and that's equally another hurdle that people need to understand, and that definitely ties into everything else too.
Yeah, and I think going back on opportunities too, what I was initially mentioning about orgs and funding and sponsorships and whatnot is the fact that opportunities create interest for sponsorships, orgs, and funding. But funding, orgs, and sponsorships also create opportunities, and it's like this cycle that has to be almost broken in a sense, and that ultimately comes down to the community itself. I work as a host for a podcast called The Post Plant, where we focus on VCT game changers and the women in NB scene in general within Valorant. But not only do we talk about the competitive scene, we also talk about the general, we talk about lifestyle things, the general community as well. And most recently we had Nietzsche on for an interview. Actually,
it was so much fun. It was great.
It was a lot of fun. And this is something that we kind of talked about during that interview, is the fact that it boils down to the community as well. We need you guys to show your interest in these events. The more viewership, the more participation, the more events that will be put on, because that sparks to sponsors and orgs and whatnot. Okay, people are really invested in this scene. Let's invest in more Game Changers teams. Let's invest in more events for just women and NB players, so that they have a safe space to grow their talents and skills. And it's kind of this loop, but it all starts down at the grassroots level, where we need everybody to show up. If we want this community to keep growing, we all have to show up for each other. And the easiest way to do that, as somebody who's at home, who is not necessarily like looking to get into the industry as a working person, but someone who enjoys it, show up for your community. If you are a woman or an NB person who loves gaming, show up for those events. Just watch them. You don't even have to, if you don't have the time to actually watch it, if you can even just lurk, have your Twitch open with the volume on 1 or something like that. If you're busy doing something else, that is even just like a small, simple way to just kind of show up for the community, show your support for these players, and for the community in general. And that is what generates growth.
Yeah, even one person makes a difference in a lot of things. You might think, I'm just one person. What is that realistically going to do for anything? But that support and that body and you being around just shows, you know, and it doesn't even have to just be a woman or a non-binary participant. Even if you're a guy and you support the scene, show up. You know, you do a lot more than you think, even if you're just one person. Show up, be supportive. If you don't want to write in chat, you don't have to. You just be that body watching. And that goes such a long way that you'll never probably realize, to be honest, but it goes such a long way, not just for the players, but for the staff that put in time and effort to put on a production or a broadcast for you.
Yeah. It's the baby steps to get to the big goal in the end, ultimately.
Ultimately, absolutely.
Yeah. And that, I think that's another thing to highlight. These events are not just for women to watch, they're for everyone, and they're all really high level talent. So if you're watching this, if you're a guy, like, your support really does matter. If you're watching this as a woman or non-binary person, feel free to send stuff to your guy friends too. Like, gosh, what you're saying, it does kind of stink, but it is the truth on, like, the business end of things. Unfortunately, those numbers do matter. If it could just be just about just the mission, and that would be enough, that'd be great. But sometimes on the business end of things, the numbers unfortunately do matter. So like they said, every person counts. The more hype that it starts to get, the more outside interest comes in, the more opportunities that can start to flow from that. So yeah, I'm always really moved. This maybe is a side note, but sometimes we get messages on our socials from guys, and they actually just, like, thank us. They're like, I really wanted my girlfriend to get into Valorant, and, you know, I play with her and she had some really awful experiences. So I told her about Galorants, and now she's playing every day, and I just wanted to thank you. And when I see supportive men in the Valorant community as well, it's just, I'm always really excited, because I think it's just a greater reflection of how things are changing, not just for equality and equity, but just kindness, like, just on a flat front. I just really believe we can bring so much more kindness and positivity to the community as well. So just a side note, but something I wanted to highlight as well. It always means a lot when that sort of stuff happens.
I think, like, to touch on that really briefly also, if you are a dude who has a platform within gaming, use your voice to speak up when possible and when it matters. I mean, whether it's in game, whether it's showing your support for the scene, that speaks volumes, because if you are somebody who has a platform, if you are somebody who supports this scene and has a platform especially, no matter how big or small, your voice does matter, and it does have an impact. Because as allies to women and NB players, and when I say players, I mean the community in general, I'm not just talking about pro players, your fellow dudes is, I guess, the word I'll use.
My fellow dudes.
Who might not understand the importance quite as much, tend to look towards you rather than towards us. It's easier for men to sometimes hear it from another man, which sucks. It does suck a lot that, you know, they can't just take what we say for at face value sometimes, or genuinely. But often, if you do have a platform, you're a role model for at least one person, and that says a lot, and that can have a lot of impact into changing somebody's perspective on the scene as well. So just remember also that you do have a voice, and if you can be a supportive ally, that also means the world to the women and non-binary scene. Because in the end, we're not here just for us. Like, we are mainly here for us to elevate ourselves, but we want to integrate everything, and that's not going to be able to happen unless we all work together.
I guess last thing I would want to highlight is just to say, like, speaking on these professional development opportunities and just opportunities for women to connect and grow and learn. thank you to Team Liquid for providing this platform. It's a huge platform that we're really grateful to have to connect with other people that are trying to get into the scene or want to learn about what we're doing. And we're just really grateful for your support and commitment to seeing this mission be successful. So yeah, just thank you to Team Liquid for having us. This has been really great.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a wrap for tonight. Again, like Kit said, thank you so much for the opportunity, and we're so glad to be here to be able to talk about our experiences with you guys and share our perspectives on the gaming scene for women and NB players and communities specifically. But yeah.
Bye.